What's up, family? Hey, welcome to the Restoring the Breach podcast. I'm your host, Greg, and as you can see, my beautiful Rib is not present with us today. However, I have an awesome guest, man, that I am very excited to have on with us today. He is a dear friend that I met in undergrad. He is a recording artist, a true man of God. He's a husband, a father, and as I already explained, man, he is a great friend, none other than Jimmie JubaLee Altman. It's an awesome privilege to have you here today, my brother.
Hey, man, thank you for having me, man. It's a privilege and a blessing to be on this with you, man.
I can't tell you how excited I am, man, just to have this conversation with you. Immediately, you came to mind. We were talking about some of the things that we've gone through as husbands and through this journey of marriage. And we've been doing a series. Any of you guys that have been tuning in, this a part of this series has been on gender roles, where we're really trying to tackle some of those things that society says, that some of our families, traditions, and even the church has labeled as specific roles for men and women. And today we want to really dive right into this conversation, bro. Just give the audience, man, a little bit about yourself and your family, just some background of who you are.
All right, man. Well, I'm Jimmie Altman. As far as, man, I'll jump right into it. As far as with marriage, man, just real quick, man, when I was 13, I used to always pray and ask God, to give me, I didn't want to be the kind of guy that would be out there just messing with a whole bunch of women and, and have kids with a whole bunch of women, not knocking anybody who's in those kind of situations, but I didn't want that for me. I wanted I used to pray that God would give me a woman who would love me for me and that I would love for her and that we would grow together. And, I found out with my wife, we met back in 2002. We started dating in 2004. So we've been together for 17 years and we got married in 2008. And I mean, I tell people all the time, marriage was like, other than giving my life to Christ, it was one of the best things I've ever done and the easiest things and the easiest thing that I do on a daily basis, being married to my wife, being her husband, easiest thing that I do every day, most privileged thing that I have to do every day, other than living for Christ and being a father to my children, man. It's been a blessing. I've learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about my wife over the years, and man, it's an amazing journey. And I think when you are in love with the person that is the one, I always say, man, no matter how long we've been together, it still feels like last week when I asked her to be my girlfriend. It still feels like it was last week. When I think about, the 17 years we've been together, 13 years that we've been married, it's like, wow, where did time go so quickly? But that's what happens, man, when you're with the one you love.
Man, that's a narrative that we don't hear, man. To hear the time frame that you guys have been together. I've had the honor and privilege to watch some of those early years of you guys' journey, man, and to see your love. I can attest that it's genuine, it's real, it's authentic. And you're hitting the nail on the head, man, that there are plenty of examples out there of true love, of godly marriage, man, and how making it work. So I salute you, brother.
Absolutely. Amen.
One of the things that we've really been touching on, man, is some of the, the traditional, non-traditional roles in marriage. Who's the breadwinner? Can a woman be career oriented and maintain her roles in the home? Even, the tough conversation for myself, the whole stay at home dad's piece. What's the approach that you and Pete take in terms of on gender roles?
Yeah. So, first, man, it kind of, my perspective on that kind of goes back to when we were engaged and, to be married. And I think it was at my bachelor dinner. We had a bachelor dinner. A bunch of men took me to Catfish Blues down in Cleveland, Ohio. And while we're in the car, the men who were in the car with us, I think other than one person, the other three gentlemen in the car were married. And the one I was sitting next to in the car was kind of giving me, wisdom from his perspective. And he's telling me, the now I'm the head and I'm the leader of my household. I got to be the bread. I got to be the one that's bringing in all the money. I got to be the one that's paying all the bills. I got to be the one that's, doing this and doing that. And one of the ministers in the car stopped him, and he said something that I thought was extremely profound. It's something that I live by even to this day. But he said to me, he said, there are things that, that you're going to be good at. There's things you're going to be highly skilled in. And there's things that you're going to be the leader in, and your wife will learn to follow you. But then he's going to be things, yeah. And he said there's going to be things where your wife is going to be a leader. Your wife is going to be really good at. Your wife is going to be stronger than you in this area, and you're going to have to learn how to submit and be a lead and be a follower to her. And he said it's all about knowing each other's strengths. You give 100%, she gives 100%, but you both are submitted to one another. And when he said that to me, for one, it took the pressure off me. It immediately took, even at a young age, I didn't feel like I had to be something that I'm not. If my wife is that, and I recognize that she's something that I'm not, then I can submit to that and follow that. And the same thing with her. So I learned early on that, I don't necessarily see gender roles in my marriage. We're when it comes to my marriage, we're looking at strengths and weaknesses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily you have to do this because you're a man, or you have to do that because you're the woman. It's this is what you're good at. This is an area in your life where you're stronger than me, so I can submit to that. And vice versa. She realizes, what? This is an area in your life that I lack. You know what I mean? And it's like, you kind of see the reasons why, man, this is why God brought this woman into my life.
Yeah.
Because everything that I'm realizing she is. And not so that she can dominate me, but so that I can learn from her and come up to that level. Same thing. Bro. He was realizing, man, thing that I'm not, this man that God brought me, he is. Not that so he could dominate me, but so that I could learn from him and come up to that level, so that we both have growth. You know what I mean? Neither one of us stayed the same over these 17 years that we've been together, 13 years we've been married. Neither one of us has stayed the same. We both have grown upward. You know what I mean? We both need to grow upward, and the areas where we lacked before, you know what I mean? Many of those areas have been addressed, and we both have shown growth in those areas, and it's because of the other person. We learn how to submit one to another.
Ooh, you dropping some fire, bro.
Yeah.
You dropping some fire. Even that piece, a lot of times the word submission is a cuss word, man. And because it's not taught authentically, it's not taught correctly. Oftentimes it's interpreted incorrectly. It's used to abuse folks. And you really hit something heavy there, man, when you're talking about submitting to one another. That is a beautiful piece right there, man. I mean, just, what, if I could ask, man, what are, if just looking at your years in marriage, man, your 13 years in marriage, what could you say are some of the things that you felt may have threatened or stretched, your stance as the role a man plays in marriage?
I think just the idea that, like what the one married man was telling me back then, which, mind you, by the way, he's no longer married to this day.
Wow.
And I'm not even, that's not a celebration of that, or, you know what I mean? It just goes to show, I was, back then I looked at a lot of people's marriages, especially people who have been married for a while. When I first got married, I looked into a lot of people's marriages to see how they operated. The man who told me about, learning how to submit to my wife, and my wife learning how to submit to me, we both bring our best into this marriage. The man who told me that, he is still married through this day. But the man who told me I had to be this, I had to be that, is sadly no longer married to this day. I don't think he was married 5 years after he made that statement to me.
Wow.
And I think that if I took that advice, I think that would have been one of the things that would have threatened my marriage, I think. But as far as what stretched my stance on it was just, was learning that I don't have to try to be something that I know I'm not, if I see that my wife is clearly walking in that.
That's good. That's good.
If that's a clear strength. And I'll just be specific. I'll speak like finances, for example. I was never bad with finances, but I was never the best planner.
Now that right. That's a hard thing for a lot of men to admit, man. That's solid right there.
Yeah, absolutely. If I'm honest, man, I was a procrastinator. And it's something that I learned from my mom. You get, if you got the money to do it on the first,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, you know what? I'm gonna wait.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stretch it out. I know I'm supposed to pay it on the 12th, but they give me a 15-day grace period, so I'm gonna just wait. And I would procrastinate and all that. And my wife is the total opposite. She's like, no, let's get these things done now. Like, and I would be like, but why? Like, we can wait though. I'm always like, why wait? Why wait?
Yeah.
Have it now. You know what I mean? That's biblical. Why wait when you can do it today? If you have it now, let's get this out of the way. And it's something that I didn't fully understand back then. And now it's like I've learned that from my wife. But I also had to learn that, me doing what I was doing was just procrastinating. It was pushing things off to the side, which wasn't the best skill. And so once I began to see that my wife was stronger, I just submitted to her. It was easy.
That right there, man. That you're really hitting the epitome to me of how God called husbands and wives to really be used to refine each other. I mean, I can't even touch on how many times, in this relationship with my wife and I, man, pretty much a dozen years married. The moments in my life where God used her as a mirror for me. And there are some times, man, where it's tough conversations where my beliefs in terms of my walk have been challenged. You know what I mean? In terms of my theology, some of my regular belief systems about how I look at her roles in the household, my roles in the household, how we're going to parent. It's truly been edifying, man. You know what I mean? The really churchy word, but it's been a way for us to really be able to look at each other and say, well, why do you feel that? Does it have to be that way? And if so, why does it have to be? Where does that biblically sound? Is that just something you picked up from your parents? Like you just suggested as a method. And it's the same in my household, man. My wife is the organizer. You know what I mean? Anybody who follows us sees all the birthdays and the events and stuff. Man, she's the mastermind, bro. And I think us really giving them credit and esteeming them and acknowledging them openly, it just not to do that does a disservice, not just to our wives, man, but to the world, to not be able to show others that they have a significant role in the home.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's powerful.
Man, I think that I used to tell people way back then, it was something that I remember reading the scripture when, God speaks to the whole nation of Israel and he says, you are the head and not the tail. And he says this to the whole nation. This is a bunch of men, women, and children. He says, and he tells this, his nation, his children, his people. And he says to them all, you are the head and not the tail.
That's good.
Yeah. And I realized that, yes, I'm the head in my household, but my wife is also the head in many issues in our household. When you think about being the protector, I want to go back to that question of what stretched my stance on the role of a man, plays in a marriage. And, when I think about the husband being a protector and a provider, well, it's like, so is my wife. You know what I mean? It's like my wife is also a protector and a provider. You know what I mean?
That's good.
My wife, I play a large role in protecting my home, but my wife plays a large role in not only protecting my home, but she protects my heart. You know what I mean?
Go ahead, man.
You know what I mean? There's so many instances where, where husbands can take hits, where we take hits in life, hits at our job, hits in ministry, hits just in life, period. That wife is right there protecting the heart of her husband. You know what I mean?
Man.
And Yeah, you know what I mean? My wife said this to me. We have these deep conversations and stuff, and my wives know what we can handle. You know what I mean? Wives
Yeah,
know, when we have disagreements or just challenging conversations and things like that. My wife knows what I can handle and what I can't. And my wife
yeah,
has said to me on numerous, like, when we have those real heart to heart, she's like, listen, because I love you and I'm a protector of your heart, I'm very careful with, or she told me, she said, I've learned to be very careful with how I communicate to you because I want to protect your heart. I want you to hear, what I have to
Ooh,
tell you. But in that, I also want to protect your heart. So she's not only protecting my heart from influences on the outside, but she's also protecting my heart from even things that she would say. You know what I mean?
come
She's like,
on,
I want
man.
to tell you this because this is something that we need to discuss, but I also
Yeah,
want to protect your heart. And you need to hear what I have to say, but I'm also going to protect your heart in what I'm saying. I'm not going to
yeah.
cut you with how I'm saying these things. And she used to tell me that all the time. And I would sit back like, man, it's beautiful because she knows me and she knows my heart and she is an absolute protector. So when you talk about the husband being a protector and a
Yeah,
provider, and I look at all of the things that my wife provides uh, in my household for me, for our children, I'm like,
yeah.
man, my wife is just as much as of a protector and a provider as I am, and if not more.
Now, see, man, that right there, we touched just a little bit on last week when
Yeah,
I was transparent, man, and I explained how I struggled with the idea of only being able to provide monetarily. And I
yeah,
know that God called us as men to be providers. As a father, we know the Hebrew word for father, Abba, is source.
yeah,
And but we always only affiliate that with providing money, with going to work and bringing the bread home,
hmm,
when it's so much deeper than that, man. You know what I mean? God has called us to, in many ways, to provide vision. He's called us to be a provider for the things that our wife and our children need. So
yeah,
it's much bigger than us just looking at what you bring home monetarily, man. And you're really, bro, you're hitting it on that. You're hitting the nail on the head, man. That's really
yeah.
good.
Yeah, because you know what, and what do you do like as a man, right? If you just think of it as a monetary thing, let's say you are the breadwinner. Let's say you
Hmm.
are, and you bringing home the most money. You're that provider in that way. 100%. What are you doing to help lead and guide your family and your wife spiritually? You know what
That's
I
good.
mean?
That's good.
Because if you put all your eggs in the basket of bringing home the bacon in that sense, and you think that's all it is, you know what I mean? It's like, I remember early on in my marriage, and we were still in college when we got married, and I was not fully in sync with really recognizing, where my wife was spiritually. So when she
Hmm.
was going through depression, when she was battling things, I didn't see it. I'm going
Wow.
on my life, and I remember when she told me, when she was after we had our first son, and she told me she was dealing with depression, and then she told me for how long, man, I felt like a failure because I'm like,
Wow.
man, how did I'm with you every day. And how did I not notice that? How did I not see that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I think that being this protector and this provider is all about just bringing home physical means, tangible means, but I'm missing the intangible things where I need to lead at and be a provider and a protector for my wife at. If I'm not in tune and in sync with her, and in that way, I'm missing it. I'm not doing my job as the husband. I could bring home all the money I need and all the money we need, but if it's not helping my family, if it's not helping my wife, it's not, like, use that word, edifying. If it's not edifying her, all that money is just nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's material things. You're gonna lose it. You're gonna go through seasons where you have it. You're gonna go through seasons where you lose it. But it's the
Now.
spiritual condition of your family that keeps that family strong.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all members of that family have to play that role. That husband has to be 100, giving it 100%. The wife has to give 100%. It's important for us to know and understand our spouse's weaknesses and strengths, because there's so many times where, I noticed where my wife was just really weak, like, going back to the depression thing, and I had to give 110%. You know what I
That's
mean?
good. That's
Where I
good.
had to give, and not judging her for where she was at, just being that leader. And then there's times where I wasn't in the place, whether spiritually or even physically, and my wife had to be that leader. She had to be the head in that area where I'm in a season of brokenness. I'm in a
Wow.
season where
Wow.
I think less of myself. I'm in a season where I'm like, man, I don't even know how I'm going to do this. And my wife was the strong one. She was the
Wow.
head. She was leading. She was guiding until I got to a place where I was strong enough and I could lead alongside her and she alongside me. You know what I mean?
Hey,
We don't lead ahead of them. You know what I mean? We don't lead ahead of them.
yeah,
We're side by side.
that's good. Man, you share with me in a sidebar conversation, man, how you have firsthand experience, you and your wife, with being in that position where you had to be the one at home. And
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
in a couple minutes, man, share that experience, man, and how you felt going through that process, what it was like for you guys, for both you and for her, because I know you have her perspective as well, her
Yeah.
sharing what it was like for her.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Sure. So yeah, we had just moved here to Texas from Pennsylvania, and my wife was able. She finished school before me, and she got a job teaching before I did, and I was still in the process of studying to take my certification test. And at the time, we had decided, you know what, we're going to be paying more in daycare. Um, uh, if I try to get, just a 9 to 5, not in my field,
Hmm.
where I wouldn't be making as much. So we just decided, I'll be a stay-at-home dad. And so that started in January of 2012. So I'm a stay-at-home dad from January of 2012 until November of 2012.
Woo.
Yeah, stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
And so, every day, I woke up every morning, made my wife breakfast, made her lunch to take to work. She came home. I'm cleaning the house. I'm making dinner every day, making sure the house is clean. Our son, I'm doing the activities with him, giving him his bath, doing all those things with him. While my wife was, she's the breadwinner. She's making all the money. We had 2 cars at the time. We had an apartment that we're paying for about $1,000 a month on our apartment. 2 cars, the cars were paid off, but we got insurance. Her job alone paid for everything, but our money went in the same bank, and we both had a card to it. And she never treated me like, well, this is my money. When that money
Yeah.
went into the bank, it was, no, we're married. This is our money.
That's good.
During that time,
That's
yeah.
good.
And during that time, she was she led the whole situation so graciously. She never
Mm.
once looked down on me as a man. She never made me feel less of a man. If I ever felt like that, it was because of just within me. I'm like, I gotta hurry up and get, get the
That's
certification and get
yeah,
this
yeah,
to help,
yeah.
my wife. And then during that time, my wife was pregnant with, she ended up getting pregnant by the end of the school year with our twins. So, one school year ends and then the next school year starts up in August. And by this time, my wife is like showing. And it was almost humiliating to me during that time because she's waking up every day, big stomach and everything, going to work. I'd be in the
Mm.
room crying like, Lord, I need to get this job because my pregnant wife is walking out this door every day. I can go
Yeah,
back to the room and go to sleep if I want to. But no matter how
yeah,
tired she was, she's waking up, going to work, big stomach and all, up until they put her on bed rest in November. But, during that time, it was a humbling process for me because, my pride was completely broken.
mm.
And I had to really, really learn how to just follow her lead and learn how to submit in that situation. I didn't stop looking for a job, and I didn't stop getting myself ready for my test. I did everything to prepare myself so that I can get
Yeah,
certified in education and everything. But in that time, it was just really just breaking my pride. But I
yeah.
learned from her so much because, like I said, she never once looked down on me. Like, you ain't nothing. You ain't, man, you ain't a man, never. Those things never came out of her
That's
mouth.
huge. That's huge, man.
Never. And she was so patient throughout that whole ordeal. She never, tried to like rush me about, why isn't, this happening soon enough? Why didn't you already have this test passed? None of that. And I think during that process, I failed the test like 2 or 3 times, and she did nothing but build me and encourage me. I failed that test once. She's like, it's all right. Well, you're going to pass it next time. You know what I mean? And this whole time, she's the one bringing home the bacon, pregnant as ever. And it just so happens that the time that she went on bed rest was a time that I was able to step into the field of education and start working when she was put on bed rest.
So God lined those pieces right up.
right up, man. Right up, man. And I think her to this day, we talk about that she, just her how she carried herself in that situation. You know what I mean? Because in some situations, if my wife had a different heart, if she wasn't submitted to God and submitted to me and her love for our family, her love for me, it could have been completely different. You know what I mean?
Oh, man. I can already, man. I can already hear it in your process, man. There could have been several moments within that time frame where people would have lost their cool, emotions get high, and you're stepping out of character and making some decisions based off of emotion.
Yeah.
Versus truly recognizing where you're at and being level-headed about it, and you being able to recognize your position while still putting in that work. You know what I mean? Knowing that that's the path that God is leading you on. I think is a testament to where a lot of men can learn from. If you could just 3 key pieces of advice, man, real quick, that you can give husbands dealing with their struggle or their role in marriage, what could you give them?
Man, I tell people this all the time, man. One of the main things I say, and Paul in Corinthians, 2 Corinthians was talking about the Macedonians and how they were in a time of like extreme poverty. But in that time of extreme poverty, they had this abundance of giving. You know what I mean? They're in a place of poverty, but they had this grace to give. And he said that they did this because he said, what I thought was profound, he said, they first learned to give themselves to God and then to us, Paul said.
Oh, that's good.
He said they first learn to give themselves to God and then to us. And so the first key I would say is give yourself, fully submit to God. And then you learn how to fully submit to your wife. Because and the same thing for the wife, you know what I mean? But as a husband, if you have fully submitted to God, it's easy to also learn how to fully submit to your wife, because God, we love God first and then we love others. You know what I mean? And so that's one. And the second thing I would say is, man, don't build up don't allow the wrong people to give you perspectives on a marriage that they themselves have not lived through and experienced in a successful way, in a healthy way.
Oh, that's gold right there, bro.
You know what I mean? You can't, it's about experience for one, you know what I mean? And I think even the wisdom that I try to share with people is through the experience of the journey that I've lived. It's not, it's not something that just sounds good that I heard at a marriage conference or something like that. It's actual experience that I've lived through. My wife and I walked through, tested, tried, and true. You know what I mean? So it's like, you can't just take so-called wisdom or something that appears to be wisdom from someone and you begin to see that, man, this ain't even something that you've experienced and you've lived through. You know what I mean? In a successful way. And the second thing is, or the third thing is, man, is that you have to value your wife. You have to value your spouse in the way that God does, and not in the way that society does.
Man,
you know what I mean? Because I try my best. When my wife and I were still engaged, not even engaged. Before we were engaged, I found a book at my mother-in-law's house, and it was a book on marriage. And I think it was called, if I'm not mistaken, it was like "Teach Me How to Be Like a Good Husband." It was something like that. And I read that book, and I used to pray during that time, like, God, when I marry this woman, teach me how to see her the way you see her.
Ooh.
If we see our wives the way that God does, the way that God sees her, you know what I mean?
Come on, man.
we would not look at our, because and we'll see submission in a different way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We'll see.
Yeah.
We won't look at submission as this dominating thing, and we'll see it because even when Paul talked about when he says, "Wives, submit to your husbands," he was also telling husbands to submit to their wives when he said, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church, who gave himself for her."
Yeah.
To cleanse her, that she would be a bride without spot, wrinkle, or blemish. You can't give yourself to your wife if you're not submitted to her.
Yeah.
You understand?
That's real. That's real, man.
Paul didn't have to use the words "husbands, submit to your wives," but that's what he still meant when he said, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church," when he gave himself for her. You can't give yourself to someone that you're not submitted to.
That's real. That's
you know
real.
What I mean?
And that means you're holding something back.
Absolutely. You're holding something back. Perfectly. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So we look at it, we'll read that for face value and see where Paul says, "Wives, submit to your husband." And we don't realize, well, he's saying the exact same thing to the husband. Husbands, submit to your wives. He's saying the exact same thing using different language to get that point across. He's actually speaking to the extent. He was just more specific. He began to speak to the extent that you need to submit to your wife. You need to be able to submit to her to the point where you're able to lay down yourself for her. Lay down your desires, your wants, your selfishness. You have to, and he speaks about in the scripture about, he wasn't particularly speaking about a marriage, just in relationships, period, and life, about seeing the needs of other people above your own.
Yeah.
Like that's submission.
That's real, man.
When I submit to my wife, I have to see her needs above my own. And because if she's doing the same thing for me, you know what I mean? If I'm seeing her, if I'm putting her needs above my own, and she's putting her needs above her, we're both meeting each other's needs, and our needs are being met simultaneously.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
It's flowing.
That right there, man. That right there is something, and we out of time, bro. Oh, we could do this forever. That was one of the key pieces, man, that Shay and I talk about, that if couples recognize from the bedroom to the finances to the decisions that they make in our home, that this is us. It's us. And we have to approach this thing as a unit and not as individuals trying to make a decision, trying to decide who's making the better decision or choice in this, or who's responsible for making this decision or choice. It will resolve so much conflict in marriage, man. So much. Man. That piece on being able to look at our spouses and go to God and say, how can I see them? My wife read a devotion where in the devotion it said that very thing. If you truly looked at, I could be messing it up, but it was like, if you're looking at your wife as God's daughter, would you treat God's daughter a way that is not as if she's God's daughter? You know what I mean? Like you're not going to mishandle her. You're not going to treat her unjust. You're not going to work at making sure you stuck to the commitment and vows you made to her father. You know what I mean? That's heavy. That's heavy. I gotta close it out, bro. Oh my gosh, man. I can't say how much of an honor, bro, it's been to have you on this, and we have to do this again.
Amen.
Sometime soon, man. We gotta make it happen. I'm sure we'll have more discussion down the line where we can bust it up and it'll be something relatable, because you are truly a brother in arms, man, and we walk hand in hand. So it's an honor and a privilege to have you, bro.
Amen, man. I appreciate you for having me on it, man. Amen.
Amen. So you guys listening, man, it's been an honor and privilege to have my brother, Jimmie JubaLee Altman. Until we come together again, you know what we live for, to provide intentional leadership for intentional living. So take care and God bless.